Hello and welcome back to my channel. If you're new around here, my name is Joelle and I talk all about life as a sociology graduate, product designer, and all that fun stuff. It's graduation season and you're probably wondering, should I work at a big company? Should I work at a medium-sized company? Or should I work at a startup? And if you're curious about working at a startup, I'm here to spill all the tea on that. I've been working at a startup for almost 2 months now and I'd love to share my perspective and also 5 reasons why I don't think startups are for everyone. Obviously, my point of view is as a UX designer, product designer, and a ex-sociology student, so take that with a pinch of salt, but I think these will be relevant for most people, so let's get into it. Reason number 1 why I don't think startups are for everyone is that you own your growth and no one else. So you won't like this if you want a bit of more structure to your growth and career progression. Startups usually don't have a career framework, and that's because things are early stage, processes probably haven't been figured out yet, and so your growth is up to you. But the good news is that you'll learn so quick. You will learn so much quicker than at a big company or anything like that, because at a startup you're going to be given so much responsibility, probably out of your comfort zone a lot of the time, but that's just the nature of a startup. Your work will also have a really high impact on the growth of the product, growth of the mission and business. So if you really love that, as well as owning your own growth and creating your own personal development goals, you are going to love being at a startup. Reason number 2 is that you have to be brutal about your product. You cannot sit there and be passive about the product and just accept all the flaws and everything as it is, the way it is currently. Because if you're at a startup, you need to be very proactive about improving the product. Because at the end of the day, your existence as a startup isn't guaranteed. And so if you're going to break into the market and get product market fit, then you need to make sure that you're continuously improving the product, and everyone in the team is responsible for that. And so something about a startup is that you will need to be very brutal and cut things if it's not going to be a viable product. Anything unnecessary is going to be a barrier to adoption for users and also ultimately product market fit, which means that you're making money, because most of the time startups don't make money at all until a couple years down the line, if they survive that long. Reason number 3 that being at startup isn't for everyone is that most of the time startups will start out, see what I did there, with employing contractors instead of permanent employees. The reason for this is that you don't know if this product is going to work. So having contractors on board is a less high risk solution for employees, right? So when permanent employees get brought in, like the position I'm in right now, you're going to have to transition over from someone else's work. And that is quite a challenge. There's a lot of politics about that. So if you don't like that, startup life is not going to be for you. There's a lot of decisions probably in the past that didn't make sense. You're going to have to own them. You're going to have to decide what to do with them. And that comes with a lot of responsibility. Of course, you're going to have to articulate your decisions as to why you want to keep a previous design or decision or change that. So if you don't like that, startup life probably isn't for you. Yeah, there's been a lot of politics recently and you have to be very diplomatic about the previous person's work, because obviously you don't want to be rude and completely write off their design, for example, but you also need to be pragmatic about it and be like, look, this isn't working, and we need to improve it in order for our product to be successful. So yeah. Reason number 4 why startup life might not be for you is that you will have to make your work very visible. Making your work visible is absolutely key for a startup. You won't love this if you like working on your own, you don't love collaborating with people, but in a startup, collaboration is key, because if you don't get this right from day 1, all those problems are going to spiral into when your company is growing bigger and bigger, because if you don't have this collaboration culture from the beginning, people are going to work in their own silos and ultimately the whole product is going to be disjointed. So my advice is to make sure your work is as visible as possible by sharing work in progress. Don't be shy about showing really ugly wireframes and designs if you're a designer, because you can really exploit the fact that everyone knows a lot about the product because you're literally the founding team. So by being open about your work, everyone can give you feedback and you can take those on board or not if you don't want to. But yeah, I really love working like this because it means collaboration is really high, and I love working with the developers as well, specifically as a designer. So that's something to keep in mind. Reason number 5 why startup life isn't for everyone is because it is chaotic. There are so many things to do, and there will always be so many things to do. I mean, that's probably the same in every company. Especially at a startup, when there is literally no process, it's so messy. It is going to be very, very chaotic. I personally love the chaos. It is so kind of freeing because it means that the scope of what you're designing and creating is so much bigger, and that's so much more interesting than what I was doing at my previous company. It does, however, meaning switching gears a lot. So last week, for example, I was working on some designs for a really big project that we're doing before we launch the product. But I was kind of pulled into creating the marketing site, and I'm not a website designer, but I had to do it anyway because there's only 2 designers in our company and someone has to do it. So it's just things like that. You're going to have to put on so many different hats, and if you're okay with that, then great. If you're not, then maybe startup life isn't for you. Startup life definitely isn't for everyone, so you definitely need to think twice about whether you can handle the uncertainty, both in terms of the work you're doing and also financially. And something that I read in an article by Melody Kaur, who's a really good writer on Medium, by the way, if you're into design, she said, your first month will always be crazy. If it isn't, either your job isn't real or your startup isn't. And I think that is so true. Like, if it's all like perfect, then you probably need to run the other way. But yeah, hopefully these gave you a really good insight into what startup life is like. And my perspective is that of coming from a sociology student and a UX designer. So let me know if you want to know anything else about working at a startup. And yeah, leave me any comments in the comment section below, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.